going on, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of Short Shifts, the official North American Hockey League podcast. Brandon Hofstra joined here, of course, with Vinnie Paracelli, and it's getting to be our favorite time of the year, Robertson Cup Playoffs, starting this weekend. We will bring you all, what do we have, 16 teams that are fighting.
16 left.
16 left.
Yep.
16 left that are fighting to head to Minnesota, to Blaine, to play at Fogarty Arena, to claim the cup. We got some teams that are, I don't know, like some teams that are going to be some powerhouses. We had some teams that had to play through the play-in series, which Vinny was at one of the games. He can kind of fill us in about that and how cool the atmosphere was, especially a first-year team packing the house, getting the place absolutely humming. We have a good interview as well later on in the interview, or in the podcast. A friend of mine, Jared Nightingale, who played in the league back in the what was that, the late 90s, early 2000s with the Soo Indians.
When we were children.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was about 7 or 8. Not trying to date Jared Nightingale, but kind of did. Anyways, yeah, let's just kind of jump right into it, Vinny. I don't know if we want to start with the play-in series, like we said 2 weeks ago, the East and the South divisions, based on having X amount of teams, had a play-in series to make it even for kind of everybody to get into the postseason officially. But let's just start with that Johnstown and in the New Jersey series that we saw.
Yeah, it was the only, I guess, upset, if you want to call it that, is New Jersey being the 5 seed, beat Johnstown, the 4 seed. Johnstown went home ice advantage. You had the game 1 on Friday night, where you had New Jersey scoring a big OT win. I mean, who doesn't love OT goals in the playoffs? I mean, it's just an electric, feeling. There's nothing else like it. So you had Jersey getting the win. Logan Rankowski with the big OT goal there. And then they won the following night 4-1, sweeping that series 2 games. And then the play-in series, only best of 3. The rest of the way, in terms of the division playoffs, best of 5 until we get to Blaine, where, if you don't know, it's best of 3 in the semis, then a 1-game championship, which is absolutely electric.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I thought Jersey, Jersey was, they've been hot. They were the hottest team kind of rolling into the playoffs here in the regular season. They finished this regular season 9-1. So they're playing their best hockey right now. And we know Craig pretty well after seeing him in the playoffs all these years. You get that team rolling, they are a tough team to stop. They're playing with a lot of confidence. And obviously they rolled that way into Johnstown and came away with the series win. Now they get to go face their probably one of the biggest rivals in Maryland.
Yeah. You can't talk about the New Jersey Titans without bringing up Dominic Bartecco, Dominic Ravelli, the 2 Doms. Imagine that out in Jersey with a name like that. But those 2 guys just absolutely just burying the puck all season long, and now they're showing up, shining, perfect timing for those guys heading into the postseason. And we'll see what these guys can do, like you said, against Maryland, who got to sit a weekend and watch and kind of just watch a lot of game film, really, and see what's coming their way. I'm not sure the season series with those 2 against each other throughout the year, but if I had to guess, I would say it was pretty close. But I don't know if you have that quickly on you.
I don't. But what the one thing I'm really interested to see this weekend is how the number 1 and 2 seeds, Maryland, Maine, Shreveport, and Lone Star with the South, how do they fare against teams that have already got 2 or 3 playoff games in? Like, they've got kind of, usually the first couple playoff games, everyone's kind of tight, right? Everyone's a little tight. They're gripping the stick a little tighter. They're just, they got to get a feel for the atmosphere. It's a different vibe. Every goal, every shift is so much more critical. I'm interested to see how those teams that didn't play react, and especially Lone Star, who I believe had the final weekend of the regular season. So they've been off for like 2-3 weeks.
They've been hanging out.
They got to go play. Yeah, they got to go play New Mexico, who just won a series against Amarillo. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see. And I think for Lone Star, we'll get into it a little more, but maybe that their style suits that, but we'll have to find out. But yeah, Maryland having the week off. It will be interesting to see how they come up against the Titans, who are the hottest team in the North American Hockey League.
100%. We'll move now to the other play-in series game that was going on in the East Division. The Northeast Generals taking the road, heading up to northern, what is that, northwest, northeast, northwest?
It's west. It's western New York. It's western.
You're a New Yorker. Yeah. I don't know anything. I'm just a Midwest guy through and through. Anyways, big battle out there, and a sweep like we saw again. Rochester showing up again. Those guys, Luca Layton and Massimo Gentili, we've heard those names all season long, and those guys again continuing to show why they're a dominant force for their squad in the East Division.
Yeah, Leighton 4 points, Gentili 3 points. You also had Michael Sandrick get 2 goals in that time. A big weekend for Rochester. I was fortunate to be at the game 2 on Saturday night. As visiting my parents right now, and they are only an hour away from Rochester, so that's an easy trip for me up over on 90. But I got to tell you, the atmosphere there was fantastic. They packed that house. I think they said there's about 1,200 people there. I might be getting them in trouble with the fire marshal because I don't think the building's supposed to hold that many. But it was packed. There was a lot of young kids there. The community's really buying into that team. And then they saw an excellent game. Northeast got the lead early. The Americans tied it. Northeast took the lead again. Americans tied it. Like basically, we'll call it a buzzer beater. Second and a half left in the period to tie things up. Then they got the goal early in the third, and they held on from there. And it was funny. I was watching it with some of the Rochester people, and one of the things that came up was, man, they're playing a lot of prevent defense, and obviously that's more of a football term, but those that know prevent defense, it prevents you from winning
Right.
most times. But the Americans were able to hang on. The Generals, I mean, they gave it everything they had in that third and final period. And Rochester, great atmosphere for a first-year team. They're moving on to the second round, I guess, or basically the first round for everybody else. But I'd be interesting to see their series with Maine. As you got two teams that are, Rochester wasn't playing their best hockey coming in. Maine kind of in that same boat, 5-5 in their last 10. So looking like to be a good series, and I'm interested to see who comes out in that one.
Definitely. We'll move over now to South Division. We had the Amarillo Wranglers heading out to New Mexico to take on the Ice Wolves for a best of three. Ended up being 2 games, another sweep. The only one, like you said, is the one we'll talk about next. I went to 3 games, but looking at that game on Saturday night, New Mexico came out to play. I'm guessing an absolute awesome crowd out there. They know how to pack the house there. 6-3 final statement win there, saying, "Hey, we're gonna go back." 2 years ago, we were here at the Robertson Cup Championship in Blaine, Minnesota. We're hungry. We want to go back. We want to put a crown on this wolf out here. But what did you see? I mean, real quick, Michael Schermerhorn, who just committed D1 to Notre Dame, he's been playing lights out for this team. You got Olivier Lameau, who's been playing great as well. Usaka Ando. You got to talk about their netminders as well. But what did you see, Vinny? Just real quick.
Yeah, New Mexico. I mean, first of all, they show out, like you kind of said. The crowd was in full force for sure. Andy Blaha, getting it done between the pipes. I think New Mexico, like you said, like they made it 2 years ago. They didn't make the playoffs a year ago, despite having top 10 points in the league, just the way the South Division was. I think they were hungry. I think, and I'm a little shocked at how I don't want to say they dominated because they only won the one game 2-1, but 6-3 on the following night, like you mentioned. Amarillo, I thought would have a little more fight. I thought, they had the coaching change recently. They had been playing better as of late going into the playoffs, and I just thought they were kind of hot at the right time. Whereas New Mexico got swept in their last series. But sometimes that home ice advantage does make a difference, and you got that crowd behind you and supporting you, and it's not an easy place to play. As the New Mexico fans have made it known, it's the outpost ice arena is probably maybe top 5 atmosphere in the NHL.
All right, now over
Yeah.
to the final play-in series. It was in the South Division. The reigning 2023 Robertson Cup champion Oklahoma Warriors falling in 3 games against the El Paso Rhinos. And we heard it all year. We heard it at the beginning of the year. It's tough to wear that target on your back after winning the championship. And, El Paso, they have had a good squad from the start of the season. They come in, they get into the postseason. They make a dogfight out of this series with Oklahoma. But what did you see, Vinny? Obviously, like a game went to overtime where El Paso won the second one, then a tight game two with the 2-0 final for the third game to move on to the semifinal round in the South.
Well, Oklahoma 7-1-2 in their last 10 in the regular season, won 5 in a row. And you're just thinking, here they come. You know what I mean? That heart of the champion type thing. Here they come. They're gonna, figure it out and just go on this run. They win game 1 relatively easily with, I think it was 5-2 is the final. And you came back the next night in El Paso, like you said, the overtime goal to get them to force a game 3. And I don't think there's anything more. I don't think there's anything more nerve wracking as a player than being in sudden death overtime at home. And I think that matters because the crowd also like is kind of like nervous too, right?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, we see it a lot in the NHL and the Stanley Cup playoffs where like, you get that home team that's facing elimination and like the crowd's just like on edge the entire time. And it's just I feel like that affects the players, especially at this level. But they were able to come through that. They get the win on Saturday night. Sunday, I know the final was 2-0, but let's be honest, the last goal was at the buzzer, and I don't
Hmm.
even know if I even saw it go. I don't even the camera even showed it go in. So, I mean, a 1-0 game. First goal of the game comes like a minute in, and then the rest of that, it's just it's Joey Lavulo playing lights out net minding in the cage. Um, Oklahoma giving everything they got, going out like going out like a champion. Trying to swing some haymakers at the end, and Lavulo still stood tall, and El Paso wins their first ever playoff series, first ever time in the playoffs for them. So, an exciting time for their fans and their fan base, and they get another home game as they get Shreveport, who they just split the last week of the regular season with. So bold prediction. And I know we're going to probably get into some things later on, but I see
Ooh,
that one
that's
going
kind of
five between Shreveport and El Paso. I see it going five.
okay. Are we gonna do our picks at the end of who we think is gonna
Well,
go?
let's do picks at the very end.
The
Yes.
very end, very end. All right, cool. All right, playing series in the books. Let's move on now as we take a look at the semifinal rounds in each division. We'll start in the Central. The number one seeded Minot Minotauros will take on the fourth seeded Austin Bruins. And then you go over to the second bracket, number two, Bismarck Bobcats taking on the Aberdeen Wings. Austin had to take on, I believe it was St. Cloud last weekend to solidify a spot, and then Aberdeen faced off against North Iowa, getting into that fourth place spot. But let's talk about the first matchup. You got Minot, Austin, fairly close in proximity to each other. But what do you see coming out of these two?
I mean, Austin, they made all the way to the Robertson Cup championship game last year. They've got a handful of those guys still on the squad. So they've got that experience factor. They've got guys that have been there, done that, and they've got the coaching staff that's been there, done that. Minot hasn't been to the Robertson Cup since 2018. So it's been a while for them. Obviously, the coaching staff is all new. There's no one that has any real, playoff experience on that squad in terms of getting that deep. So we'll have to see if Minot's just. I think Minot's the better team, like just talent wise. I mean, they've proven that all year long. But we'll have to see if any of the experience from last year comes into play for the Austin Bruins. I mean, still got Trent Wimpkin in net. He could be a
Right.
difference maker just in general. So I think he's got to play lights out for them to win the series. But we'll have to see if that experience factor plays a role in that one. In the other series, Bismarck and Aberdeen, I mean, I think it comes down to is Aberdeen going to score enough? Last year, they got shut out a few times by St. Cloud in the first round. And now they go up against Stephen Peck and Clayton Knapp, who I think they have like 10 shutouts combined. Like that, their defense is absolutely loaded for the Bismarck Bobcats. So is Aberdeen going to score enough? That's good, what's going to come down to at the end of the day. So that'll be interesting to see. And, you know, Bismarck at home, tough team to play as well. Um, I just don't know if Aberdeen's going to score enough.
All right, we'll take a look at the East Division now. You'll have the Maryland Black Bears facing off against the New Jersey Titans, as we said earlier. And then the number two Maine Nordiques taking on the Rochester Junior Americans. Vinny, like we kind of stated earlier, New Jersey and Maryland could be quote unquote rivals now in the East Division. But both teams that have gone to the Robertson Cup in the last 2 years, one of those teams winning the entire championship. Uh, I think we're going to see a pretty heavy and pretty, I don't know if I want to say high scoring, but I think it's definitely going to be a pretty chippy series between the two.
I think this is going to be the most entertaining series of the eight. I really do. You've got Maryland, who's got some guys that were on the team last year that are hungry to get back there. You've
Mhm.
got Jersey, who is the hottest team in the league right now. So, I mean, they couldn't have drawn a worse opponent, I guess, in terms of like, for a first round matchup, we'll call it a four seed, right?
Yeah.
Um, Maryland, though, I mean, they're so solid. Three solid lines up front. I mean, the defense core has been solid all year. I mean, their experience. The goaltending's been really good. I mean, there's not a lot of flaws in Maryland's game, but New Jersey's just really hot right now. So like that's why like this and the way and like you said, they don't like each other. Like there is a little bit of chippiness that's there. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And I think it's gonna be the most exciting series for sure.
On the other side, we got the Rochester Junior Americans, who, for the first time in their franchise history of 1 year, are making it to the semifinal round. And they'll take on the Maine Nordiques, who did not get to Minnesota last year. I believe it was 2 years ago, correct, that they made it out to Blaine, Minnesota?
2021, so
2021.
3 years,
Yep.
yeah.
So 3 years ago. Both new coaches in a sense. In the North American League, you have Nick Skrlik, who's been around, but then you have a completely brand new coaching staff for the Rochester Junior Americans. But I feel like game one is definitely going to be a feeler game for both teams.
I think the Junior Americans, if you were to wager, if that was your thing, I would say the Junior Americans might be the favorite. And I say that because Maine is just kind of meh right now. They lost their last year of the regular season. They went 5-5 last 10. They had last weekend off. The Americans got their playoff legs under them. Yeah, and they won two. They won the first game pretty handily, 3-0. Then they had a comeback win, so they kind of experienced being down, coming back, and putting things together to get themselves a win column.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Rochester in this one. I just think I mentioned earlier how I'm curious on how teams that didn't play were going to play against teams that had playoff experience already. And I think in this case, it's going to be the most, I think it's going to be the most telling. I really think that Maine is, they're not playing their best hockey right now. Rochester got the playoff legs under them. They're ready to go. Gentili, Layton, DeCipio, other names on that roster we mentioned, they're all playing well right now. So I think I give Rochester the edge in this one.
If you look at the NAHL top scorers right now, you have three junior Americans in the top 15 with DeCipio 81 points, Gentili 78 points, and Luca Layton with 64. Still in that top 15 at number 11 is Charles Tardif of Maine with 64 points. So you obviously have a lot of firepower up front with the Rochester Junior Americans. Maine, not saying that they're not a team that can't score, but in the top at least 15, they've got one guy compared to three. So I think that'll be an interesting matchup. And if you get Gentili and pardon me, if you get Gentili and DeCipio and Layton all rolling, it's going to be a long, long series for the Maine Nordiques.
Oh, and they split up DeCipio and Gentili off the line, so now you got two lines to deal with.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Look out. All right, we'll move over to the Midwest Division. The Anchorage Wolverines complete and take the first place spot in that division, and they will face off against the Minnesota Wilderness, who were kind of on the edge of making the playoffs between the Chippewa Steel and themselves. They get in by 1 point. And then the other matchup will be the Wisconsin Wendigo against the Janesville Jets, so an in-state rivalry matchup for those two teams. Vinny, what are you seeing? I know the trip to Anchorage or Alaska in general is pretty tolling on a lot of teams, but you're gonna have Anchorage coming back down to the States to play as well. So I don't know if you can really
Yeah, I
count
mean,
for air legs, if you will, but it's still a factor for both.
Anchorage, I think, is just I think Anchorage and Wisconsin are the two best teams in this division, bar none. And that's not to throw shade at the other two teams, but Minnesota, I don't want to say they backed their way to the playoffs, but like they just got him by the skin of their teeth, right? Like they needed 1 point against like Springfield in the last couple of games, and that's what they got to win in overtime to get over the hump and get past Chippewa. But yeah, they just seem to not they're not playing their best hockey right now. And at the playoffs, you got to be playing your best hockey. Anchorage has kind of been a wagon for most of the season. I know they had like an 11-game win streak at one point. They've been playing really well all year long.
Mhm.
Granted, they did get swept by Fairbanks this last weekend. They did pick up the point to clinch that one seed because if they had not gotten a point, Wisconsin was going to have the tiebreaker.
Right.
Wisconsin and Janesville. I mean, to put in perspective, the Jets were in first place when top prospects rolled around,
Hmm.
and they're now in third by 14 points. They finished by Anchorage. So that just goes like the second half of the year has not been kind of them. They've dealt with a lot of injuries. They lost a couple guys in top prospects, like which
Right.
is, I mean, almost one of the worst things you can do. Getting hurt in a. I know it's not an exhibition, so to speak, because that the kids are playing for college spots, but I mean, you get hurt in a game where you're not even playing for your team. That's got to be a big gut punch, and it's a tough break for the Jets in general. I mean, Look, it's hockey. It's the playoffs. Anything can happen. But if we don't see an Anchorage, Wisconsin Midwest final, I would be surprised.
Right. You got the league's top scorer, Max Martin, for the Wendigo, 97 points as he finished off the regular season. He's going to be throwing some pucks at the net, obviously. Tyler Graham with him as well. And then you got another few top scorers with Hayden Cruz of the Janesville Jets, Connor Brown, a defenseman who's the eighth top scorer in the league. You look
Right.
over
I mean, good candidate for defenseman of the year.
100%, 100%. Anchorage, you got, I'm going to absolutely murder this name. Fyodor Nikolalia. Just don't even quote me on that one. 64 points. Can you help me there?
Nicolay, Nicolay. I'm going to butcher it too.
Yeah.
I've heard it a million times, but I should know it by now. But I know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Number
Fedor. I
19.
know
He's
that
great.
Fedor's really good.
Yeah,
Fedor's
yeah,
good.
64 points for him, and then you got Bryce Monreen for Anchorage as well, 62 points. I'm looking here to see if I can find a few guys for the Wilderness that are on the top of this top. Geez, how many guys do we go down on this list here? Pretty darn far, but um, yeah, it'll be interesting. And like you said, if it's not Wisconsin and Anchorage, it's that's definitely something that nobody saw coming their way.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not to throw shade at anyone else. It's
No.
just that's how good those other two teams have been all year, and all year, not just like spurts, like all year they've been the top. Like Wisconsin, literally, I think led the division for 90% of the season.
Yes.
So
Yes. All right, we'll take a look at our final division, the South, which is owned right now by the Lone Star Brahmas. The oops, they will take on the fourth seeded New Mexico Ice Wolves, and then the El Paso Rhinos will face off against the Shreveport Mudbugs. Vinny, we know how the South is. We know that last year was some long games in the
oh
South
yeah,
Division at Night
yeah.
Sports Center, Complex Center, either or. Um, are we going to see some laid back, just grind it out, boring hockey, as you have once stated, or are we going to see some fast pace, moving the puck? I know New Mexico is kind of a quick team, but they'll take on Lone Star, who's this year a little different than we've seen in years
They're not
past.
boring. They're
They're
not
not
boring. I
boring.
don't think.
They are not boring. And then you got El Paso, who again was in the playoff series to come into this and got the second seed, according to our website right now, and then taking on that third seeded Shreveport Mudbugs squad. But what do you what do you got? What do you got, Vinny?
I mean, Lone Star scored over 200 goals. Now, granted, it's not top 10, but for them, it's really good.
Yes.
So, and to be the team that gives up the fewest amount of goals is also really good.
Wait a
So,
minute.
I mean, you got both those things going for you.
Out of all four teams, they've scored the most goals in the South that are left. 206. Oh, second
Uh,
most. Sorry, Shreveport at 208.
but but
Right.
200 goals for Lone Star and even
Come on.
Shreveport actually is really good.
Yeah.
But what I think, like I mentioned earlier, that layoff, right? They didn't play the last 2 weekends of the regular season, then had last week off. So they've been off for a long time. They ended the season on a 7 game winning streak. So like it stinks to be like playing really good hockey and then not play.
Right.
But given historically their style of play, where it is defensive and it is playoff hockey literally the whole season long, where they just don't allow goals, I don't think that layoff is going to hurt them as much because that's just the way they play.
Right.
With that being said, if you have a bad game, you don't play your style of game, and you give up one or two, and God forbid three, I think it might be tough for them to turn it back on offensively and get it done. So I project a lot of low scoring games in that series with New Mexico. I would say if they were to play 5 total games, there would be less than 20 goals scored total. I foresee a lot of 2-1s, 3-1s, maybe even a 1-0. And I know that's the 1-0 was the score of their game 5 of their South Division finals 2 years ago. And there's not a lot of goals in New Mexico and Lone Star play. Maybe a little more than Shreveport Lone Star, but not much more.
Not much more. All right. We are.
And then lastly,
Oh,
real quick,
sorry. You go
lastly,
ahead.
sorry. No, Shreveport, El Paso. I mean, flip a coin.
Yeah.
I mean, flip a coin between those two. I really, I guess Shreveport has the edge a little bit because they had a couple more points than in the regular season. But interesting to see how that series shakes out.
Couldn't agree more. Well, let's do this. Let's send it over to our interview with Jared Nightingale, and then when we come back, we'll have our 4 picks from each division. Here's Nighty. Our guest today spent 3 seasons in the North American Hockey League from 1999 to 2002 with the Soo Indians, 1 year as a captain of the team. After that, he played NCAA Division I college hockey in his home state of Michigan at Michigan State University, where he played 4 seasons and wore an A for 2 of those years. In his senior year, as it ended, he found himself in Springfield with the Falcons in the American Hockey League. Then he made stops between the AHL and the ECHL with the Iowa Stars, Idaho Steelhead, Charlotte Checkers, Hartford Wolfpack, Chicago Wolves, Connecticut Whales, Syracuse Crunch, Rockford Ice Hogs, Toledo Walleye, Grand Rapids Griffins, Milwaukee Admirals, and the Quad City Mallards. He spent 12 years in the pros, and after retiring, started his coaching career in the USHL to USA NTDP, the OHL, and where he is now, and standing by watching the opposition with the Rockford Ice Hogs in the AHL. A man whose face was made to be on the camera. Welcome to Short Shifts, my friend Jared Nightingale. That was a heck of an intro.
I'm impressed, Brandon. Real smooth. No, I appreciate you guys having me on.
I'm amazed that I ran through all those teams. Elite prospects is a great thing.
Yes. A lot of hotel points there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Spots. Yeah.
Nighty, first off, want to thank you again for hopping on. What's going on? Obviously, like I said, you guys are getting ready for a game tonight over at the BMO Center over in Rockford.
Yeah. It's my 3rd year here in the American League. I got started with you, Brandon. My first year coaching was in Omaha in the USHL. And I moved to the US program and then to the OHL. And then I was very fortunate this opportunity arose in a place that I had played. I played 10 years ago here. So I'm familiar with a lot of people and management. It's been a fun transition.
When looking at that EP page, like I said, is 12 years correct? Was it 12 years of playing pro hockey, or is it?
Yeah, it sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of pit stops along the way.
Yeah. A lot of, I don't know, that's kind of normal in the minors if you play long enough, right? It's tough to. I think my longest stint in Hartford, I was there for 4 years. Then after that, it was just a lot of shuffling.
Right on. So you got the nice Gucci bags for traveling so much, right?
Yeah, not with my salaries. Yeah.
Now let's kind of start from the beginning. Michigan guy through and through. You played 18U AAA, then you found yourself in the North American Hockey League at a younger age. But just talk about that transition from playing youth hockey, then going into juniors. And did you guys know much about the North American League? Obviously, you have 2 older brothers that played hockey to high statures as well, but just kind of talk about the league and what you knew and kind of getting greedy from there.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in northern Michigan in a town about an hour south of the border, south of Sault Ste. Marie, where I played junior and went to high school. And really our community, when I was a squirt, built an indoor rink. That sparked our interest. And then really the love of hockey came in. We were watching Lake Superior State Lakers, and that time in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was falling in love with hockey, the Lakers were the team. They won 3 national titles. So we started going to games, and eventually my 2 older brothers, we met the right people in Sault Ste. Marie, and they ended up moving up there. And at that same time, the Soo Indians, I think their first year was around 95, 96. And we went to some of the games. As a little kid, you go to some of those games. They had an unreal rink, the Puller. I think it's one of the best rinks I've ever been in. It's old school. The Wings used to hold training camp there in like the 40s. Anyways, we go to games there, and that kind of felt like the NHL. As a little kid, kids, back then they didn't have to wear visors. And it was really fun. And after that, it kind of seemed like that was a place I wanted to try to aspire to play. Mm-hmm. My brothers played juniors. Jason played for Des Moines Buccaneers, and Adam played for the Soo Indians, my middle brother. But the biggest thing was being around, our connections in Sault Ste. Marie kind of opened the door and shed some light on what the North American League would offer. And it was, it was definitely a goal.
Jared, a lot of us know the NHL now is, all about getting kids to college and, moving on to higher ranks of hockey. What was it like back then? Were you interested in playing college hockey? Did you know that was like the way to get there? Like, what were the thoughts going into playing in the NHL?
Yeah, I think you're so kind of naive to, how far can you make it when you're young? You just want to, I just want to play for my hometown team, and I loved hockey. Really fortunate I had parents that were willing to sacrifice and wanted us to chase whatever we wanted to do. But as I grew to and I moved to the Soo and I played midget up there, my goal was always to play college hockey, play D1. And I knew that junior hockey was a huge step. And I got to know a lot of the players that, obviously going to the NA, the Indians had quite a reputation. They were really successful. They moved players on. So I knew that was just going to be one of the steps to try to be a junior player and hopefully sign a commitment to play college hockey.
Kind of going off that, Jared, as you said, playing in the NAHL led to an NCAA scholarship, obviously. But just talk about how that came to fruition. And were you always a Michigan State household growing up? Did you love the green, or were you more blue? But talk about just kind of going from juniors to the NCAA and how that all came together.
Yeah. Well, at the time, both my brothers were playing for Lake Superior State and in the same town as the Soo. And I signed originally my national letter of intent with Lake State. We were all going to play together. Jason was going to be a senior. There was a coaching change. It didn't work out. And then, long story short, Michigan State got a new coach that was recruiting me. He was the coach at Northern Michigan, Rick Comley. And kind of the day that I got out of my commitment with Lake State, Michigan State made an offer, and it was an easy choice. But growing up, I was a Laker fan, college hockey.
Okay.
I think every kid loved Michigan football.
Mm-hmm.
And knew how good Michigan hockey and Michigan State hockey was. But I mean, once you put on the green and white, obviously that's the last team I root for is the University of Michigan. So no, it's funny how it worked out. I mean, Michigan State was probably the biggest impact of my life. It's where I spent all my off seasons when I was playing. My brother's the coach there now. So it's, it's part of who we are.
Right. And it had been kind of a dream come true. Sorry, Vinnie, to cut you off, but kind of a dream come true to go play for one of the big state schools. Obviously, Lake State is a well-known hockey program, but you have the entire college experience there of going to football games, that rivalry, Michigan State, stuff like that. But how cool was it to be a part of that?
It was surreal. Yeah, I honestly, I still got to pinch myself that I had that opportunity. At the time, Michigan State was going to Frozen Fours, and they had Ron Mason and Ryan Miller. They made like 20-something NCAA tournaments in a row, and never would I would have thought that I could have played there. And then the chance to be there and be around many guys that had long careers in the NHL. Very fortunate. It's first class. It's definitely something I had to pinch myself.
I was wondering, we know now today, social media, there's, Twitter, X, Instagram, all the BS out there. But like, what's recruiting like back in the late 90s, early 2000s? Because I mean, cell phones weren't really a big thing. You had to go to games. You couldn't just watch a kid online. What was that recruiting process like for you?
Yeah, I wasn't heavily. I signed pretty early. It was just between Northern Michigan and Lake State. And I committed, I think, late in my junior year. I went on a visit to Northern, but yeah, didn't have cell phone. I didn't have cell phone, and my brother and I shared a cell phone in college. And, thinking back to today's world, I can't imagine. But yeah, I remember going on a recruiting trip. I didn't have a cell phone in Northern Michigan. My parents came with me. I went out with the team. Pretty much I was on my own. But yeah, it's a totally different landscape now. I mean, not just the social media, but probably the rules of recruiting has changed drastically. But yeah, mine was a pretty short process. I made my decision pretty early.
What's your most memorable moment from playing college hockey?
Well, I think the first time I, put on the jersey, as corny as it sounds, you kind of never thought that would happen. And my D partner was Duncan Keith when he was still there. Really surreal. But I think by the time I left our senior year, we won the CCHA. We got a 1 seed. kind of felt special to be a part of the, not, I don't want to say turnaround, but Michigan State hockey was kind of back, and they won the national championship the year after I left. So it was a special time and pretty cool to feel part of success.
Yeah. So right after your senior year ends, like we see still to this day, a lot of players will go immediately into playing pro at some capacity. But talk about how that kind of came to. You finished that year, then did you have your bags packed if you guys were on the road and a contract ready to sign? And I guess back in the early 2000s, you probably took a horse and buggy around. But how'd you get there?
Well, our season ended my senior year. We lost in the second round, and I really wasn't even thinking that a team would call. And it's not rare for American League teams that are way out of the playoffs to call college free agents. I wasn't drafted. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it because we were successful as a team and I was a free agent. Springfield called, and it was a great experience. I got to play 10 games, probably more ice time than I deserved with a team that, trying to take a look at prospects. But that was the first taste of pro hockey where I told myself this is the level that I can play at. It took me a couple of years to get back to the American League, but it was crucial, and it was really neat looking back to be able to go and play in the American League for your first games pro.
What's that feeling like when you're going back and forth from the ECHL to the AHL, and you're making that step, and then maybe you kind of take a step back, but then maybe you found yourself in a better spot for your game and try and work on some things. What was that feeling like going back and forth?
Yeah, it's definitely, there's challenges. My rookie year, I tore my ACL. I was up and down. That was the first real test of my career. And, then I went to Charlotte in the ECHL, and the ECHL, like a lot of players don't realize, it's a really good league, especially for development. I was a stay-at-home defenseman. I needed ice time. I needed reps, and just to improve. So it was a very important part of the process. But just like anything, I mean, you got to be able to, if you want to be successful, you got to be able to weather the ups and downs and the politics in pro hockey. And I'm seeing that firsthand on the coaching side. I wish I knew some of the things I know now, to not read into everything and just worry about the things you can control. But it made it that much sweeter when I was able to be a full-time American League player, knowing the work and basically the prices that I paid to get there.
From to follow up on that a little bit, from youth to junior to college to pro, there's always that kind of change, and you got to kind of make a change in your game in some way to, get yourself to that next level. What do you think was like the biggest change between all the different levels you played at when you had to, what you had to adjust to the most, I guess?
I think each level, it's the maturity. For a defenseman, it's so cliche, but less is more. And for me, I had to take pride in defending well, and you learn that through usually getting beat and playing simple. I was very fortunate to be with really good veterans, guys that have been there, and good coaches. Obviously, I think it's important. You got to have a coach that believes in you. But trying to be in the present. I think a lot of players we see here in the American League, even the ECHL, they always want to be somewhere else. They want to be in the NHL. I think when you do that, your mind's in the wrong spot. And, it's really, and it's a challenge to stay in the present. But I definitely, I look back, I really embraced, even when I was in the coast, to look at his opportunity to get better.
Jared, as we said at the beginning of this, 12 years in the pros, what's some fun, memorable moments that you had, or maybe a cool story with some guys who are the NHL now? And you and I kind of have a cool one with me being a big Blues fan. When we were in Nashville for the draft, Craig Berube was standing next to me, and I asked him he asked me where you were, and I said right here, and then he obviously went right through me. But yeah, that was pretty cool for me.
Yeah. No, Chief at Berube, what a nickname, hey? When you got a nickname called Chief.
Right.
Yeah, I was able to, I could go on and on. I think, not only I played for Berube my last year pro, and guys played 1,400 games. He's got the second most fights ever, and just the epitome of humility. Kind of those type of guys maybe want to be a coach. Also playing for John Cooper, I think probably first thing I always think of, I played in Syracuse, Cooper's last year. And Cooper's an NA alumni, right?
Yep.
This last year in the American League before he went up to Tampa. We lost in the Calder Cup finals. But just, I mean, some of the guys are still playing. Outstanding memories. You know, I didn't even play in the playoffs, but that was the closest team that I was ever a part of. And the coaches really made you feel part of it. Really special. You know, with all that time, I was getting scratched. I did a lot of play-by-play, and actually the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights, Dan Duva.
Yep.
I called about probably 30 games that year with him when he was with the Crunch. So you build a lot of relationships. That's the thing that you miss most.
I was so bad in Omaha. I'm surprised you didn't jump up and take the mic while coaching on the bench, too.
I remember I taught you. I taught you some things. Moving up and onwards.
You suck.
You got a golden microphone.
You got the golden hair, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the elite prospects page. You got a lot of letters there. It's probably why you're a coach now. You're a leader of men in some way. What kind of type of leader were you? Are you a kind of rah-rah guy, like getting people's face? Are you kind of that calm, quiet, lead by example type?
Good question. I think the best, I tried to always bring it every game. I think in my effort and try to put the team first. I wasn't always perfect at that, but you know, I think when you in anything you do, you put others above yourself, and everybody's going through things. It's a great opportunity. You know, leader, kind of a rudder on a ship. You think you can really nip things in the bud as far as the attitude in the locker room and towards the coaching staff. I tried to have a team first mentality and tried to, put others ahead of myself, and always relishing the role of standing up for teammates. I think that's kind of a trademark that I had, that I do anything and everything to make the team feel comfortable.
Now, you obviously you retired, you get into coaching your first year in the USHL with Omaha. How was it kind of going from a player, then becoming a player's coach kind of, and taking everything you learned on the ice to now being on the bench and telling those guys to do that on the ice?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I mean, there's a ton to learn. I mean, I knew coaches put in a lot of time, but it's a whole different profession. I mean, I was a player, I was on the ice, but the skill of a coach to be able to communicate and figure out what's most important for each player individually. That year in Omaha, I was really fortunate to work for Dave Wilkie. He let me dive right into a ton of video. I was able to be hands-on with the penalty kill and the defenseman. I think it's really important as a young coach to get with, a head coach that is going to give you some jobs and that's going to want to help you, and because none of us have all the answers. But it's a work in progress. Honestly, I think the biggest thing I've learned is each player is different. There's you can't teach two players exactly the same way, and they're not stupid. They can tell. I know when I was a player, even if the coach was teaching me right or wrong, if I knew he cared about me and it's like he had really good intentions, that went miles. So try to remind myself of that.
One quick one I'm going to interject here. If you didn't get into coaching, what would you have seen yourself doing besides modeling? Don't say that. I know you're gonna.
Yeah, I can't use that. I really enjoyed the play-by-play color commentary. I don't know how that'll pay the bills.
Right.
No, I was a law enforcement major in college. My grandpa was a Detroit PD and my dad was a Michigan State Police. I've always had respect for the badge. I wouldn't be surprised if I was in something in law enforcement.
Yeah. All right, Nighty, a little more about coaching now with the in the AHL, Rockford. With the pros, you're within the Blackhawks organization. You guys see guys go up and down all the time, but a special player was drafted last summer within that organization with Connor Bedard. How long ago did you know, or whatever, if you're allowed to say that? Like, obviously he was going to be number one, but have you come across him? Have you seen the kid play? Have you seen the kid practice? Have you met him and kind of stuff like that?
Well, we coached the American League teams, coached the NHL prospects, so that a week before training camp, all the draft picks and prospects come. We flew to Minnesota, and Connor Bedard was on our team, obviously, and we practiced with him for a week. And We had 2 games. He only played in one. But what a special kid. Like, epitome of humble. He's all in on hockey, very respectful. I mean, you meet him, it's somebody that you pull for, and supremely special. Like, I told a story. I run hockey camps in the summer. I guess in the summer after the draft, all the prospects flew to Chicago, and they had like they went to the Cubs game. Bedard threw the first pitch. They're going like homeless shelters, just getting them out, do community stuff.
Yeah.
They come back after like a 12-hour day, and they can't find. They're at the Hawks practice facility. Nobody can find Connor Bedard. He's missing. People are starting to panic. And then all of a sudden they hear like whacking and like pucks hitting a wall, and he was alone with the lights off in their shooting room shooting pucks.
No way.
I guess the guy's married to their shooting room, but just on his own, you can tell. I mean, he's obsessed with the game, and he's already the best, at his age, maybe ever.
Mm-hmm.
He's still not satisfied. It was a pretty cool,
That's
cool
really
memory.
cool.
That's wild, really.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically, you've worked with probably the future best player in the world. You coach with the national team. You were in the USHL, unfortunately, with Brandon. Working with the like different mix of guys, like how hard is it to be able to connect with each different guy? Because you mentioned earlier how everyone's different. You can't coach everyone the same. How do you make that adjustment so you can relate to most of the guys? Because you're not going to be able to satisfy everyone.
Yeah. No, good question. I think it goes back to being authentic. I thoroughly enjoyed coaching in Omaha just as much as I do coaching here. Coaching's coaching. If your heart's in the right spot, you really care about players and want to help them achieve, their full potential. Whether it's a guy that plays in the power play or the guy that's getting scratched, often. I think, I really enjoy connecting with those players. It's a process too. But again, players aren't stupid. I think the best coaches, they're authentic. They enjoy where they're at, no matter what league or level. That goes miles with players.
Nighty, one more for you. We'll cut you free. Obviously, big game tonight for you guys. But anything about the North American Hockey League you'd want to say about your experience, the development, and maybe some words to future players who are looking to see what their next path is in their hockey career?
Yeah, the NA was outstanding. When I played in it, I think there was 10 or 11 teams. And even when I coached the U.S. program, we went to Johnstown and played Chiefs. I think they're called the Chiefs.
Tomahawks.
Okay. Sorry. Chiefs Old Arena.
That's a movie.
Yeah.
But I'd say the challenge there, it's probably comparable to here. There's a lot of players, they probably want to be in the USHL or, they want to be somewhere else. Like the NA is an outstanding chance to develop. It's ran well. I know, even talking to my brother Adam, the coaches at Michigan State, those are teams that they watch. Mm-hmm. So it's a great opportunity to continue playing. I mean, there's living proof. There's players every year that move on, but it was a great chance to continue playing and chasing your goals.
All right, Nighty, thanks again for doing this with us. It's been tremendous catching up with you and more about your background. I guess you're a pretty mysterious guy, so it's good to know a little bit more about.
I only told you half of it. Yeah.
About my busmate / roommate on the road once in a while. But again, thanks again, my friend. We appreciate this.
Yeah, guys, enjoyed it.
All right, we want to thank Jared Nightingale again and all the kind things he said about playing in the league and his experiences from the NA to college to pro to now coaching. Great guy. Thanks again for doing that. Let's get right to it, Vinny. I'm going to let you – we're going to go each division. So let's start in Central. You go ahead with your pick.
I mean, the best team all year has been Minot. I mean, this isn't that hard for me, honestly. I mean, Minot has been the best team all year long. I think they get it done. I think they come back to the Robertson Cup.
All right. I'm going to go Bismarck.
Okay.
We're just going to move this train along. East.
Yeah. All right. Here's the fun fact that everyone knows that I try to tell everyone that will listen. I've been in the North American Hockey League. This is my 7th year with the league. For the previous 6 years, or I guess 5, that we didn't have Robertson in 2020. But There's always been a different representative from the East. No team has ever gone back a second time as long as I've been employed. If we follow that method, there's only one team that currently fits the mold,
Yeah,
and
I
that
know
is the
who it is.
Rochester Junior Americans.
Yep, that's my
As
pick as well.
as Maine, New Jersey, and Maryland have all made it in the last 3 years. So
Yep.
if we're just going in order, it's Rochester's turn. That's literally the only reason why I'm taking Rochester, just because I need to see that trend continue.
I got Rochester as well. All right, Midwest.
For that same reason. For
Yeah,
that same
100%.
reason,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
ride the train. Love it.
Yep. Midwest, baby.
Midwest is tough. I'm gonna go Wendigo.
Same.
I'm gonna go Wendigo. Wendigo won the season series in Anchorage 3-2. They play each other 5 times. Max Martin's the best player in the league.
Yep.
Sorry, not sorry for spoiling the MVP award. I know it's not been voted on yet, but he had the most points by a lot. So let's
Yeah.
be honest.
Yep.
Their goaltending's really good. I like Max Beckford a lot. I think last year they were supposed to be there, and when they got upset by Minnesota, let the bad taste in their mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and they're hungry to get back there. I think
I,
they get it done this time.
I agree. They got a
And I
well-oiled
think and I, and I think the travel for Anchorage, having to go, you're in Anchorage, travel back to Minnesota for the rest of that series. You gotta go back to Anchorage for your home games and go back possibly. I know it's
right,
a
right.
little funky how they do it, but you could be making 3 trips back and forth in the span of 2 weeks. That's not gonna be good for the legs. And I think Wisconsin gets it done.
I agree. All right, final one. South Division.
You got to go the best team in the league. The regular season champion Lone Star Brahmas, they score now. They're not boring.
This is true.
They're not boring anymore. They score. Maybe they start a little boring, but they score more than usual. They still have the defensive style of play. They've been the best team all year long. I got Lone Star. So that makes it, for me, Minot, Rochester, Wisconsin, and Lone Star. 2-1 seed. That's not terrible.
Oof. Oof, 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 oof. I know you have lunch to get to, but man, I want to say Lone Star, but I also want to go with an upset. And I'm thinking,
I know you're picking.
oh gosh. Oh no. This is like me at the grocery store. I'm just like sitting there like trying to pick out what I want, and I can't. My
I know who you want to pick, but I don't know if you have the stones to actually pick them.
I
And
think
I have it on the record.
I think I'm gonna pick the New Mexico Ice Wolves.
Oh, that's not the team I thought. I thought you were going El Paso. I really did.
Nope.
Okay.
Yep. Ice Wolves, baby. All right. That's our picks. Who did I have? Bismarck, Rochester Junior Americans, Wisconsin Wendigo, and the New Mexico Ice Wolves. So,
That's not a single 1 seed. That's if that happens, that's impressive.
hey, I got them all right last year. Every
You
single one
did.
in the
You
championship.
got yeah, you did get them all right last year. That's pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie to you. No, but not a big deal.
What I'm saying. I mean, if you don't go with your heart, which I usually do, like my bracket for NCAA basketball was an absolute dumpster festival, like the first pick. If you don't do that, you're better off. And that's a
Yeah.
life lesson to all you kids out there. Don't bet with your heart. Bet with your soul.
No, don't do that. Yes. Yeah, that's what it is.
All
Well,
right.
Brandon, I appreciate you dealing with my technical difficulties over here. As you noticed, my background changed halfway through the show, but
Yeah, didn't even notice. Yeah, not one bit. This will be heavily edited. Anyways, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. We will catch back up with you probably what, Vinny, 2 weeks from now. As teams will move on to the next round or whenever that happens.
Next week I'm going to be with you in Dallas, though.
This is true. This is
Might
true.
have to get one in there. Might have to get one
Yep.
in while I'm there.
NA3HL draft next week. NA draft obviously in June. Robbie Cup right around the corner.
Combine season as well.
Yep. Full
Future
swing.
future stars, man, we are in it. We are in it right now. Best
Full
time of year.
full swing. All right. Thanks again for tuning into to this episode, and we will catch you next time. I'm Brandon. That's Vinny. See you later. Boom.
Recording stop.